Hello everybody, how are you? Hello everybody, how are you? It is time to start our day. It is time to work and play. Hello everybody, how are you? Hi guys, welcome back and happy Friday. Today is our third and last day of fairy tales, and I saved my favorite for the very last day. My favorite all-time fairy tale is Cinderella. I love Cinderella. I love the story. I love the movie. I love Gus Gus, if you've ever seen the movie, all the talking animals. I love everything about it. So today we are going to read, just like before, we're going to do two versions of Cinderella. The first day we did Red Riding Hood and read two versions. Then the second day we did Rapunzel and we read one version and then we told kind of a different silly version. Today we're going to read two versions of Cinderella. But what's interesting about our two versions today, it's not a version like we did the other day where it was the wolf telling Little Red Riding Hood along with Little Red Riding Hood, where we heard two different ways the story could have gone. Nope, today is going to be two versions. The one we're used to, the one we've probably heard growing up, and then the second one is going to be from a different country. This country is called Mexico, and I'm going to show it to you on our map because Mexico is part of North America. It's just south of where we live, just below where we are. It is right here in this area. And in Mexico, they speak another language called Spanish, and some of the words in the other version I'm going to read today are in Spanish. So I'll try my best to say them properly. I hope I do it okay. But first, let's read the one that we kind of know already. It's called Cinderella. Let's see what happens in this version of the story. Guess how it starts out? Once upon a time, there was a pretty girl called Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and two ugly stepsisters. The ugly stepsisters did not like Cinderella. They made Cinderella do all the work. One day, a card came from the prince. There was to be a ball. Every girl in the land could go, but the stepsisters did not want Cinderella to go. The stepsisters told Cinderella she could not go to the ball. She only had rags to wear. Cinderella was very sad. Cinderella helped her sisters to get ready for the ball. She helped them dress. She brushed their hair. She tried very hard to make them look pretty, but it was no good. They were just too ugly. The stepsisters went to the ball. Cinderella was very sad. She wanted to see the prince. She sat by the fire and cried. "Don't cry," said a voice. It was Cinderella's fairy godmother. "You will go to the ball," said the fairy godmother. "Go and get a pumpkin," said the fairy godmother. Cinderella got the pumpkin. "Go and get 6 white mice." Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She did it, said the fairy godmother. Cinderella got 6 white mice. "Go and get 2 rats." 1, 2, said the fairy godmother. Cinderella got 2 rats. "Go and get a frog." 1 frog, said the fairy godmother. Cinderella got the frog. The fairy godmother waved her magic wand. The pumpkin turned into a coach. The mice turned into horses. The 2 rats turned into footmen. The frog turned into a driver. The fairy godmother waved her magic wand again. Cinderella's dress turned into a pretty ball gown. Cinderella got into the coach. "Be home before the clock strikes midnight," said the fairy godmother. "The magic ends at midnight." At the ball, Cinderella saw the prince. "Please dance with me," said the prince. They danced all evening. The ugly sisters did not know that the pretty girl was Cinderella. Now look at their faces. Look at the stepsisters' faces. I would guess that they feel jealous right now. They're angry and jealous about this beautiful girl that's dancing with the prince. The clock struck midnight. Bong, bong. Cinderella said, "I must go home." "Come back," said the prince. But Cinderella ran away. She lost her shoe. The prince picked it up. The coach turned back into a pumpkin. Cinderella's pretty ball gown turned back into rags. Cinderella ran all the way home. The next day, the prince looked for Cinderella. Every girl in the land tried on the lost shoe, but it would not fit. Cinderella's stepsisters tried on the shoe. It did not fit. At last, Cinderella tried on the shoe, and it did fit. "Will you marry me?" said the prince. "Yes," said Cinderella. And so they were married, and they lived happily ever after. Now she gets to dress in beautiful gowns all the time. Okay, before we read the next version, what were some of the fairy tale elements, remember that word from yesterday, that you heard in the story today? Did it start the way we think it should, the way a fairy tale does usually? Did it start with, yep, once upon a time, and then if you notice too, at the very end, it said, and they lived happily ever after. Those were two of the elements we know that make up a fairy tale. Another one was the prince and the castle, and there was a problem. Cinderella wasn't being treated nicely, and the prince came and helped her with that problem. Those were some of the elements that were in Cinderella. Okay, so we know that version. Let's hear a very similar version, one that's very close to this. But again, it doesn't take place here. It takes place in a land called Mexico. And some of the words are going to be in Spanish. In fact, her name in this story isn't Cinderella, it's Adelita. Once upon a time, there we go, there was a young girl named Adelita. She lived with her father, Francisco, and their family helper, Esperanza. One evening, Francisco called Adelita and Esperanza to a study. "My dear Adelita, my good Esperanza, I have some news for you. I have met a charming woman, and I have decided to marry again. Her name is Senora Michaela de la Fortuna. She is a widow and has 2 daughters close to your age, Adelita. I know you will like Doña Michaela and her daughters, Valentina and Dulce." Adelita was happy for her father. Esperanza wasn't so sure, especially after she met, Doña Michaela and her daughters. "Que fríes son, they're cold ones," Esperanza said. Life was happy, but different. Adelita had to share her father's attention, but they still managed to have special moments together. Adelita didn't mind that Doña Michaela favored her daughters, even though Esperanza complained. Es natural, it's natural, Adelita told her. Then suddenly her father died from an illness, and everything changed. Poor Adelita was an orphan. Doña Michaela had always been jealous of Adelita. Now she no longer had to hide it. She moved Adelita from her beautiful bedroom to a small room in the attic. No longer did Adelita have new dresses. She had to wear hand-me-downs. Worst of all, Valentina and Dulce were mean and hateful to her. Adelita began spending all of her time in the kitchen with Esperanza. She helped her with the meals. She listened to stories about her father as a boy and her mother as a young bride. Because she knew that Esperanza loved her, Adelita's heart stayed as warm as the fire in the hearth. One day, Doña Michaela came to the kitchen and spoke to them. "I am spending too much money in this household. From now on, you, Adelita, will work in the kitchen. You are here all the time anyway. And you, Esperanza, get out. I want you to leave immediately." "Oh, Senora de la Fortuna, please don't send me away," Esperanza pleaded. "I have been with this family since I was a girl. I will work for no money, just for a place to lay my head and a bowl of beans and a tortilla." "Oh, please, Mama," Adelita begged. "Esperanza can share my room and my food." "Out," shouted Senora Michaela de la Fortuna to Esperanza. Then, in an icy voice, she spoke to Adelita. "And don't you dare call me Mama again. I am Doña Michaela to you." She turned and left with her nose up in the air. Amid tears and hugs, poor Esperanza said goodbye to Adelita and left with her meager belongings. Adelita was in despair. That means she was so sad she didn't know what to do. The days ahead held nothing but loneliness and hard work. Adelita had to prepare all the meals, clean the rooms, and fetch and carry for Valentina and Dulce, who became more like meanness and vinegar. "Mi hijas, my daughters," Doña Michaela said one morning as Adelita was serving breakfast. "El Señor and la Señora Gordillo have sent an invitation to una fiesta en su hacienda, a party at their ranch, to celebrate the homecoming of their son Javier." "Ooh, Mama," Valentina and Dulce twittered. "And," Doña Michaela said with a smile, "rumor has it he will be looking for a wife." The daughters nearly fainted. Secretly, each wanted to be the wife of Javier, and each would do anything to get him. Doña Michaela, Adelita asked as she poured the hot chocolate, may I go too? I knew Senor Javier when we were young. I would love to see him again. Are you serious? Doña Michaela asked. Look at you, so poorly dressed, such a dirty face. I would be too embarrassed to have you in our company. You will stay here. That is final. Adelita went back to the kitchen. The next days were busy. Adelita did not have a minute to herself. Washing, pressing, sewing ribbons on, taking lace off, at the mercy of every little whim of the sisters as they tried to outdo each other. So when Doña Michaela, Valentina, and Dulce left for the fiesta, Adelita went to the kitchen and sat by the fire. Suddenly disappointment swept over her and she began to weep. She missed her father, she missed Esperanza, she missed being at the fiesta. Tap, tap, tap. She heard a soft knock at the door. Who is it? Adelita asked. Soy yo, only me. It was Esperanza. Oh, Esperanza, I have missed you so much, Adelita cried. Don't cry, my little one, Esperanza said. I am here. I had a dream that Doña Michaela would not let you go to the fiesta, so I have come to help. I have borrowed a cart to take you there. But I have nothing to wear, Adelita said. Come with me, Esperanza said. They went to the storeroom. Over there, behind those boxes, is your mother's trunk. The key is behind the crucifix. Adelita unlocked the trunk. Inside, she found an old-fashioned, beautiful white dress. Under the dress was a magnificent shawl, embroidered with birds and flowers. My mother, Adelita whispered. Adelita washed and dressed. Esperanza braided her hair and wound ribbons and flowers in it. Oh, Esperanza, Adelita cried. Doña Michaela will be furious when she sees me. Don't worry, she will never recognize you, Esperanza assured her. Now, let's hurry. The fiesta had already begun when Adelita arrived. She walked into the room. Everyone turned to look. The room fell silent. Who was this stunning young woman? Senor Gordillo went up to Adelita. Who do we have here? He asked. I'm in disguise, Adelita said with a twinkle and smile in her eyes. Just call me Cinderella. Javier, everyone, Senor Gordillo said. Come meet our very own Cinderella. Javier took one look and fell in love. He danced every dance with Adelita. He brought her refreshments. He never left her side. Adelita's heart was full as well, and all the meanness she had suffered over the years began to melt. But at midnight, when Javier gave her a sweet kiss and declared his love, Adelita was frightened. How could she explain who she was? His family would never allow him to love a kitchen maid. Aww. So Adelita ran away and found Esperanza. They hurried home. I will never forget this night as long as I live, Esperanza, Adelita said. Gracias. Thank you. If you ever need me, my mijita, my little daughter, just call my name and somehow I will hear you, Esperanza told her. The next day, all Doña Michaela and her two daughters could talk about was the mysterious Cinderella, who had appeared and then disappeared from the fiesta, just like the fairy tale. They were jealous of her beauty and even more jealous because they knew that Javier had fallen in love with her. I'm glad no one knows who she is, Valencia said. Or where she is, Dulce said. And no glass slipper, Doña Michaela added. Javier had told everyone that he would not rest until he found his Cinderella. He is coming into town today, Doña Michaela announced. He will stop at each house and look for her. This is a chance to show once more what charms you have, my daughters, so prepare yourself. Who knows, maybe one of you will make him forget this Cinderella. Adelita, they screamed, come help us quickly. I will be right there, Adelita answered. But before she went to Valentina and Dulce, she ran to her attic room and hung her mother's shawl out the window. She helped the two sisters dress, then she went back to her room and shyly peeked out the window. Soon she saw Javier coming down the street on his horse. Suddenly he saw the shawl. Do you see it hanging from the window? He jumped down, ran to the door and knocked. Senora Michaela de la Fortuna opened the door. Ah, Senor Javier. Come in, please, she said. Senora, where is she? I know my love is here, Javier said. Do you mean one of my daughters? Doña Michaela said. Valentina, Dulce, come here. Senor Javier would like to see you. Is that who he was looking for? I don't think so. The sisters appeared in the doorway, giggling foolishly. Good day, Senor Javier, they chimed in unison. Do you remember us? Are you looking for us? Yes, ladies, I remember you, Javier answered, but it's another that I'm looking for. There's no one else here, Doña Michaela said. Yes, there is, a voice said. Are you looking for me, Senor? There was Adelita standing at the top of the stairs in her mother's dress and shawl. My Cinderella, Javier said. What's going on here? Doña Michaela asked, while Valentina and Dulce looked at Adelita in astonishment. It's only Adelita, Doña Michaela, Adelita said as she came down the stairs. Only Adelita. Who are you? Javier asked. I am Adelita Mercado Martinez. We knew each other when we were children. Oh, Adelita, of course I remember you as a little girl, Javier gasped. I am so happy to have found you again, he smiled. I have come to ask my Cinderella to marry me. Will you? Oh, yes, I will, said Adelita. In her sweetness, Adelita invited Senora Michaela de la Fortuna Mercado and her daughters, Valentina and Dulce, to the wedding. Of course, Esperanza was there too. She was going to take care of Javier and Adelita just as she had done before. And just like Cinderella and her prince, we shall live happily ever after, Javier said, and they did. Very similar to our other story, wasn't it? She had a mean stepmother and she had mean stepsisters. She wasn't invited to the ball, or in this case it was called the fiesta, but somebody helped her, but not a fairy godmother in this story. This time it was their family friend, their family helper. But the same thing, she went to the ball, she met the man, and they fell in love, but she had to leave by midnight. In the first version, her pumpkin turned back to a pumpkin, her coach turned back into a pumpkin. In this version, she just had to leave before she was discovered. Now, midnight, what is midnight? Why do we talk about midnight? Midnight is a time on the clock, and it happens in the middle of the night, so we call it midnight. On Facebook, you grown-up can print off a clock for you that you can make. You can cut the outside circle, and that will be the clock, and then these blue parts are called the hands. We'll talk about those in a second. And then there are 12 numbers that go on the clock. The 12 goes at the top, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, back to 12. Those are the numbers on the clock. The hands, there's two of them. There's a longer one and a shorter one. This one says minute hand. This one says hour hand. So you can make your clock today. You can cut these pieces out, and you can put it together, and you can make your clock, and you can practice telling time. If mom says that dinner's going to be ready at 5 o'clock, then you're going to put the hour hand on the 5 and the minute hand up top, and that looks like 5 o'clock. So when that matches your clock in your house, you know it's dinner time. That's 5 o'clock. Now, the way I made my hands stick on here, you can use two things. If you have any of these little brads at home, these work really well. If you don't have one, I just used a twist tie. I put it in, and I pushed it down, and it holds it in place, and then I can move the hands around. You can color your clock, you can do whatever you'd like, but this is your clock to make and practice with. It has been fun sharing fairy tales with you guys this week. I hope you had a good time listening to them. Go act them out, go have fun playing with them and doing all of our different activities. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.